morning, good afternoon, good evening, however you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you're listening, wherever you listen. It's the Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast, and the Bearded Bandits are back. And if you have not noticed, Jamal is growing his beard in. Don't shave it, Jamal. I think I'm going to go with the beard.
You wait until, if I keep this on until Thursday, I'm going to get stopped at airport security. You don't worry about that.
I just have to go through these rough stages the next 2 weeks. And then once I start combing it, I'll be good. It'll be back to how it was. I think I'm going to go with the beard. My wife liked it too. She didn't like it in the beginning. And then she was like, "Oh, you cut your beard." I'm like, "Yeah, you like it."
They come around.
I think it gives like that look. You know what I mean? So definitely. Let's start with the Madman. Madman, how are you doing today? I know you're a little excited because you're headed somewhere. How are you doing today?
Doing excited, Fred. Great to see you guys. Great to see you, Rye. Very fired up here. Headed out to the Galen Center about an hour to watch the second round of the tournament with the great Juju Watkins, USC Kansas. Can't wait. Fun fact, me and my best friend from college, from SC, 20 years we've had season tickets, 20 consecutive years. We have together, we haven't gone to a USC college basketball game since we graduated in 2006, and yet to go to a USC women's game. So I'm very, very excited to see the legend, Juju Watkins. I think everybody wants to see USC Iowa for the natty between Juju and Caitlin Clark. So let's
get
it on.
They don't want to see that. They don't want to see.
They
don't want to see Juju take over Caitlin. They don't want to see that. I'm gonna start the pot a little bit here, Jamal, real quick. Stir the pot real quick. Will Juju be the best all-time player at USC?
Wow.
Because we know who it is.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's Reggie's sister. We know that. It's the great Cheryl Miller. No question about it. Look, I think Juju has the opportunity to do so, but she's going to have to win a couple natties. Just averaging 25 a game isn't going to be enough because Cheryl Miller averaged, I believe, 23 a game over 4 years at USC, back-to-back natties, 4-time unanimous All-American. So Juju can do all of those things, but you got to get the hardware.
There you go. And we got the man, the myth, the legend itself, the CEO, the founder, 4 years ago in Children's Hospital and down in Hollywood, California, decided to come up with LAFB. Ryan Dyrud, how are you doing on this fabulous Monday?
Excellent, gentlemen. Good to see you. A lot of exciting stuff to talk about. It's crazy, Jamal and Al, to think like when we went into August, how much hype was around this football team, how much hype was around the men's basketball team with Collier and obviously Bronny. And here we are in March, and the women's basketball team has the best chance to be the shining light for the USC Trojans. So pretty exciting. And obviously we got some exciting stuff with football to talk about, but hats off to the women's basketball team. I'm very jealous you're going to be there, Jamal. I think that'll be a blast of a game. And it seems like the scenes at, dating back to even the season, it's been a lot of fun with Juju Watkins and all the other.
It's a special year, Ryan, in women's college basketball overall. I think this is the first year that the women's tournament has outshone the men. And I think it's been evident in terms of SportsCenter the last couple of nights. SportsCenter opens with the women's game more than the men's game. So it's terrific to see. And both LA teams, you got a 1 in USC, you got a 2 in UCLA. There's just a ton of fun. So the women of Troy, and I think they're already the shining star this year over football and basketball. So let's see how far this magical ride can go.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, sorry, Al, then you can go, but it's, with basketball in general, it's such a star-driven sport where singular stars drive the sport. And, I will always admit I'm a casual basketball fan. I don't pay that much of attention, but for sure in men's college basketball, I feel like there's not like a defining star in college basketball, where in women's college basketball, you have at least 2 with Caitlin Clark and obviously Juju Watkins. So there's just actual driving star power in the women's game, which the men's game doesn't have this year.
No, you're so right. I mean, you got obviously Caitlin Clark, Juju Watkins, Paige Beckers. You got undefeated South Carolina. You got Angel Reese, defending national champion LSU. You've got, Cameron Brink from Stanford, Lauren Betts from UCLA. I mean, it's just so many stars and, just outshining the men right now. It's great to see. It's really phenomenal to see.
Absolutely. As a girl dad, love it.
I will say this. For those of you who don't know, SC has always been a women's college basketball team. They've just been in a little drought, but now the whale has struck gold again. So they're back. I'm happy they're back. I would love to see Juju pass Cheryl. I'm sure Cheryl wants to see Juju pass her as being one of the greatest. It's good for the program. I hope we just keep feeding a bunch of more people in and make women's basketball a thing again, because like we'll rightfully say SC's not a basketball school. It's just it's just a sport. You know what I mean? Like, but you know, they put a lot into women's basketball in the 80s. I hope they put a lot into it now and get it back. I would love to see that. It's great for the program. It's great for the university. Speaking of great for the university, great for the program, let's get down to business. Mm-hmm. So we had a big announcement this weekend. And if you guys want to go on the recruiting tracker, you can go to LAFBnetwork.com /USC football commitments 2025. We have a whole recruiting tracker for you guys to follow. We flipped one from Georgia, guys. Justice Terry. Is it Justice?
Yeah.
It's Justice Terry.
I like Just Terry, though. That's a nice blend. Just Terry.
Justice Terry. 6'5", 275, 5-star commit from Georgia. He's coming to the University of Southern California. Now, I'm going to stir the pot today. I'm in a good mood. We're all in a good mood. I'm stirring the pot today. The SEC is falling, and I think the Big Ten is the conference. Now that you have USC in the Big Ten, I don't think anybody in the Big Ten can out-recruit USC if it's done right. You get what I'm saying? You want to go to Ohio State? Take a visit to Ohio State in the winter and the spring. It's still cold. Hey, come on out to Southern California. This is the beach. These are the models. This is downtown. You see those mountains up there? That's Big Bear. Go get in the snow. You know what I mean? Like, I think they have a location recruiting advantage. All the SEC schools are not buying into NIL. I shouldn't say all, because Texas A&M is buying into it. But the big guys aren't buying into it. You get what I'm saying? And it's slowly dwindling. Even Dabo doesn't want to buy into it. To flip a guy from Georgia who's like at the Mecca, right? They're at the Mecca of college football right now. To get a guy not to come after a year that we have, things are trending upward for Lincoln Riley. He's starting to look like a bullish stock. You know what I mean? His stock is starting to look a little bullish. You want to buy in right now, buy low. And if it goes the other way, you'll sell and you don't lose a lot of money. But buy low right now. I'll pass it over to Ryan. What do you think right now with this Justice Terry commit, and what do you see recruiting for USC?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a huge flip, and we'll get to some of the other names announced yesterday. Just a huge recruiting weekend. They had the crawfish out there. Aaron Donald was out there. And so doing all the right things. And I think this, Jamal and I kind of talked just, friendly about this yesterday too. Like, this is just a huge sentiment of like how important Coach Henderson is to the staff and how important that hiring was. And D'Anton Lynn too, obviously as the defensive coordinator, but Coach Henderson and what he's done on the defensive line in just such a short time. And you have a guy committed to Georgia who churns out defensive linemen in Georgia, and now getting him to flip and come here because I think a lot of things are going on. But when you see Coach Henderson, what he's doing to develop, kind of how he's able to sales pitch, you see Aaron Donald at the facility hanging out, talking up your coach. Like that's the big, huge factor here is Coach Henderson and what he brings now. And so, yeah, just a big time flip, obviously a lot of time from now till 25. So this is now where the NIL structure comes in, because the coaches did their job in recruiting and flipping. Now, how do you retain these prospects? How do you keep them committed to SC and not flipping somewhere else if someone comes in now with more money? So the job isn't done yet, but this is a huge step that we haven't seen in some time. And getting these young, and you've talked about it all the time, Coach, like year 3 of Lincoln Riley, you start shifting what you do in the transfer portal versus what you do in the recruiting ranks. And they jumped in just one day to, still a long time, but with 5 names, they have the 3rd ranked recruiting class in 25. So, and Justice Terry, number 1 defensive lineman coming from Georgia. It's just a very, very good positive step, and fans can at least say, okay, these hires were all great. We got to see it play out. Well, now you're starting to see it at least play out. Now they still got to play the games, but you're seeing stuff go in motion slowly but surely. So yeah, great flip there for Terry.
Man.
I think yesterday was the third greatest day of the Lincoln Riley era at USC. I think it was absolutely significant. I think to this point, I'll still say the best moment of Lincoln Riley's USC career was winning the Victory Bell year one in that epic game. I think number two was hiring Eric Henderson as defensive line coach. And number three was yesterday, because when you look at not just who they got, but the ramifications. And Ryan talked about it a bit here. Justice Terry, 5-star, number 7 overall prospect in the class of 2025, ESPN 300. You talked about it, Coach, 6'5", 270. Now you go pair him with an Isaiah Gibson, who they got, 6'5", 255, 135th prospect, ESPN 300, 4-star recruit. Both guys being heavily recruited by Georgia, both guys being heavily recruited by the SEC, both guys from the state of Georgia, and to be able to go into that backyard and be able to sell what Coach Henderson can do in terms of development to the NFL, what USC can do as a university for its athletes in terms of exposure and the opportunity to be in media and be in business after playing the game, and third, the opportunity of what the program could potentially be on the rise. We all know college football is better when USC is great, and they've always been that stabilizing force on the West Coast to sort of geographically balance the entire sport. Yesterday was a seminal day, and I think the greatest statement was actually made by Juju Lewis, who is the 5-star quarterback in the class of 2025, when he said, look, all these guys want to come to play for Coach Henderson now. Everyone seems to be wanting to crash the party because they see the opportunity to get to the NFL. And I think Coach Henderson has taken a really strong approach here. I think he's a guy who's out there with a lot of energy and a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I think he wants to prove that he's a great coach independent of Aaron Donald. I think it's ironic that Aaron Donald is part of the recruiting show and the process, as it should be. But I think he wants to prove that I was not the beneficiary exclusively of Aaron Donald, but that Aaron Donald was also a beneficiary of having me as the coach. And so this is a very exciting convergence of factors that's taking place. And you start seeing it on these message boards of Georgia and the SEC. Folks are taking notice. They're getting really concerned that USC is a factor once again. And it's been about 20 years since that's been the case, 15 to 20 years. So we're seeing a shift. And I think the key point here Ryan made earlier is now it's about retention, because 2025 is still a long way off. You know Georgia's not going to go take this line down. They're going to come back with more. Bama's going to come back with more. Others are going to come back with more. So how does USC maintain? But on the flip side, does this generate even more momentum? Is there a LeBron James effect where now that these two guys are coming, is there a Michigan Fab 5 effect where a couple of guys come and then everybody wants to come and kind of create a new era? So can't overstate it. Obviously, it's hard to have a defining day of your program when you're not actually on the field. But this is as close to a defining moment of the early Lincoln Riley era as you can get without being on the field. That's how big this weekend was.
I'll go back to this, and you said this when they were talking about the hiring of the new DC. Their window is closing, right? And I think Lincoln Riley knew the window was closing. And what we're seeing here is what we're seeing Pete Carroll recruiting, right? Well, yeah, Pete Carroll recruiting, because even though SC was top 10 in Hilton days and Kiffin days, that was solely on the logo.
SoCal. Yep.
You know what I mean? It was solely on it's USC. That's all it was. This is, hey, I could get you to the NFL. You know what I mean? So when you have 4 guys going in the first round, 6 guys going second, and days behind, and then having extended careers, you start to notice them like, nah, wait, I want to go to SC. What makes it better is when you're the last team standing. That recruits itself. Look, I went to Poly. The reason why I went to Poly is because Poly recruited me by winning. I wanted to go to the best school and be in the best situation possible. SC is setting itself up to be the best school and put you in the best situation possible. Because this is what happens, and you talk about this all the time, Jamal. We start winning, the big donors start coming. And now money no longer becomes an issue. You know what I mean? So, like, things aren't going to happen overnight, but they definitely are going to happen. I want to get into Hilton Stubbs. Hilton Stubbs also committed this weekend. 4-star safety, 6'1", 180 pounds. He's going to gain.
Coach, real quick.
Go ahead.
I want to get into Stubbs too, but I just want to say one more thing about Henderson, because Stubbs will be more about, Coach Belk and the secondary. Yeah. But one other, I think, like really intriguing thing about Coach Henderson, and I don't want to downplay D'Anton Lynn, who, is obviously the catalyst of this too, and the DC, but Candace used to say this all the time, and don't worry, anyone out there listening, Candace will be back. She'll be back. She's just, away for now, but we'll have her back, the queen. But about, relatability and being able to players see in their coach kind of what they can get out of the program and development, but also someone they can relate to. And not only Coach Henderson played in the league, not only does he have the gravitas and the excitement and the energy, but I think the fact that he's from Louisiana, he grew up in the South, he coached at Georgia Military Academy, so he has those Southern roots to recruit those SEC guys. But then he's been in LA since 2017 with the Chargers, the Rams, and for whatever reason, my camera decided to cut out there, so I'll get that back. But so then now he's built this kind of LA relatability, being here for, going on eight years or whatever. So I just wanted to point out that I think that's an important factor as well, as a guy that can do everything on the field in terms of football, but also has that relatability to players that, Candace always talked about. It is so important that, not all coaches have.
Ryan, it's so interesting that you mentioned that, and it's so true. And I think what he's demonstrating through his relatability, through his shared experiences, to being able to speak a common language, to really empathize and build relationships with the recruits, is he's just demonstrating unbelievable value. And if this keeps up, it's only one day, so it's hard to not get too carried away. But if this keeps up, you have to wonder if he wants to be the defensive coordinator in 2025. Does D'Anton Lynn have to leave? Because right now, all that we've been hearing in the offseason has been all about Coach Henderson and DAWGWORK, and rightfully so, and it's sort of building from the ground up. We haven't heard that much from D'Anton Lynn. It's early. It's a few samples, but it really feels like this team is being built from the trenches inside out. And you have to wonder, even as Henderson starts understanding his value and his power of being able to build recruits, and if he wants more, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the rest of that staff sort of gravitates towards him, or has to realize, you know what, objects in the mirror, front row mirror, are closer than they appear, and it might be time for me to get out of there. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see the Lynn dynamic. It's early, but this could be a much shorter stint for Lynn than we realize.
I disagree. I can tell you why. Here's my evidence. Factual-based evidence. Who was the defensive coordinator during SC's national championship years?
Pete.
Nope. It wasn't. It was Nick Holt.
Yeah, what defensive
coach do we all remember from SC's national championship years? It's Coach O. Exactly. Yeah. You just said it. Coach O. I think, and Henderson's been in the league. He's never been in the spotlight. He might just be that guy like, look, I just want to be the guy behind the scenes. I don't want that pressure on me. I don't know. You know what I mean? But he probably loves. Go ahead.
Yeah. And Jamal and I talked about this yesterday offline. Like, it could also, and we talked about this even with the hiring of the staff, is Lincoln Riley and the staff was really protecting themselves on, like, all these guys have the ability to be DC, and we're getting off subject here. We'll get back to the recruits, but it also, I don't think it wasn't a mystery that D'Anton Lynn probably wants to return to the NFL at some point. So this is basically like setting himself up to, if Lynn wants to go back to the NFL, they've got their DC and waiting, obviously, clearly. So I think everyone's in good copacetic. But yeah, I was even, as soon as you were saying that, Jamal, I was just like, oh, we got our own Coach O now with Coach Henny. So
yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, is D'Anton Lynn the Cliff Kingsbury of the defense this year? I think he's going to be more than that. He's going to be more than that. But it's interesting to see. And here's where I disagree with you, Coach. Coach O wasn't a head coach, not because he enjoyed just being a recruiter. He wasn't the head coach of USC because USC didn't want him to be the head coach of USC.
I wasn't a country club guy.
He obviously, Pete was there till 2009. And then the vision was to kind of go offense with one of his disciples, with Kiff and Sark. But obviously he was lobbying for it in 2013. He wanted it so desperately. Ended up obviously going to LSU as the head coach, won a national championship. So he wanted to be a head coach. There's no question about it. He just wasn't given that opportunity by USC. And I have a hard time believing that somebody like Eric Henderson, who's still so young in his coaching career, starting to understand his own gravitas, his own pull, is just going to be content with doing this for a very long period of time. I think he's going to take his shot, and I think he's going to be able to use it as leverage and possibly even learn from the mistakes of the situation with Coach O to best position himself moving forward. So I think it's a little idealistic to think he's just going to be content being this D-line recruiter and letting other people make more money, have more fame, have more of an impact. I think the impact clearly lies with him even more than Lynn, and frankly, even more than Riley in the offseason right now.
Yeah, well, I guess I said it wrong. He may get his opportunity, but it won't be at SC. I should say it like that, right? I think for all these guys, all 4 of them that came in new, I think this is a springboard destination for them to become either a head coach or a defensive coordinator somewhere else. And I'm okay with that as long as there's a plan put in place that it doesn't fall when they leave. You get what I'm saying? So say Deanton Lynn gets a DC job in the NFL, right? And they make the North Dakota State guy, Ince. They make Ince the DC, right? And then Ince leaves, and now it's Henderson's shot. As long as there's a plan in place and nothing falls, and all of a sudden the original 4 are gone, and you have a new guy, Taylor Mays. Say Taylor Mays becomes a DC. No offense, Taylor, but then it plunges. That's where I have the issue. And I think that's where people mess up when you have the opportunity to set something up where Alabama, where when you leave, you just keep it going, build and keep it going, build and keep it going. So I don't think he'll be at SC. You're right. He probably does want the opportunity, but it'll be somewhere else. And this is his springboard to get it somewhere else. If that's better.
Yeah, and he's special, Fred.
Yeah.
I mean, it's early, but we can already sense it in terms of just the interaction. And I think if it was that easy to just have the succession plan in place and just keep it rolling, then those individual coaches wouldn't have the value that they do. No disrespect to Matt Entz, but I have a hard time believing, just real talk, a white guy from North Dakota is going to be able to go into the Deep South and say, I'm so relatable to your worldview and your positionality and your intersectionality in the world, so come play for me. I mean, that's going to be a tall order, okay? So, all these other guys are great. Belk is great and all that, but they're kind of all riding the coattails of Eric Henderson right now. Let's keep it real here on the defensive side.
So, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a good conversation. That's what makes it so great. We can have good conversations. That's called educated banter. We disagree, but we still love each other.
Barely even disagree. Disagree. So.
Yeah.
All right,
so
get the Stubbs now.
Yep, Hilton Stubbs. We'll get you out on time, Ryan. I promise you. Hilton Stubbs.
that was a little bit of a let's keep it moving, okay?
Oh no, I interrupted you.
Yeah.
I interrupted you.
Me too.
So I was throwing it back to you.
Hilton Stubbs. So a 6'1", 180-pound safety from Florida, 4-star athlete. Here's the thing about Hilton Stubbs. I don't know how old he is yet, but if he turns 18, he's going to gain 10 pounds. That happens automatically. Once you turn 18, you gain 10 pounds.
I wish for me that happened, but
and then when you turn 35, you gain another 30.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
And then you get in a program too, and you gain. We're looking at a 200-pound safety here. Now, if he gets to 200 pounds and can still run and do everything spectacular, we're looking at safety U again, right? So this is a great put in, and this is Belk. Belk has had success in the college game and has done great things. So now we're starting to build depth. That's the most important thing. We're starting to build depth in the secondary. This is going to be the hardest part of this USC recruiting class. You have to convince him to stay because he's not going to play that much this year. You know what I mean? So you have to develop him and convince him that just stay. Your time is coming. It's just not right now. Just stay. If you have to throw a little money at it like the U.S. government does, just throw a little bit of money at it. But you have to convince him to stay because the defensive backfield is loaded right now with talent. And he has to understand it's not your time, but your time will come. Once your time's come, the kingdom is yours. Jamal, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think there's a lot to love here. Again, in the secondary, you can see the type of player USC is going after now. It's physical. It's guys that they can develop in the weight room, play a certain brand of ball. I think they're recognizing what it's going to take to not just play in the Big Ten, but thrive in it and be a national contender year over year. And it really starts with physical strength and dominance on the defensive side of the ball. I agree with you. This one's going to be a little bit of a challenge. When you look at the Kamari Ramseys, you look at what they got in the transfer portal, you look at some of the young kids, you saw the development in the Holiday Bowl. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge here. And so I'm excited about this. But again, it takes a little bit of a backseat for me to Terry and Gibson just in terms of the pecking order of the position.
Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, echoing that. I mean, obviously you have a year. He won't be there till 25. But yeah, it's just, I mean, we've talked about the secondary a lot. It's a deep, deep group. And Kamari, is only going to be, he has another year after this year.
Sophomore, yep.
He's not going anywhere. Obviously, Humphreys will probably be, or Humphrey, will probably be gone. And he's more of a corner than safety, but Arnold will probably be gone. But still, I mean, Zion Branch, I mean, you go down the list. We don't have to name them all. It's a deep group. So if he's a guy willing, get a little bit of NIL, hopefully, if they're able to work that out and come in and develop under this staff, then, this is another unbelievable. But yeah, it's definitely like, okay, how are we going to keep this guy? Because it's a deep group. If he wants to play as a true freshman, it'll be tough. But if they keep putting guys in the league, and even when the secondary has been bad for SC, they put guys in the league, right? I mean, Kalen Bullock potentially could be a second round pick this year with how bad that was. So now that they have guys that can develop you, that's the selling point, right? Like hopefully make some NIL, but hey, you're going to probably not play a year, but if you're sophomore and junior year, we can make you a top 3 round pick. Then that's how you kind of keep guys. But great addition out of Florida. Doug Belk, obviously being a Southern guy, being from Georgia, some big impact there. But yeah, just another good one.
Yeah. So I was kind of thinking about this, and we do have some time. Yeah, about 15 minutes to talk about this. And I kind of mentioned it earlier. A lot of SEC schools aren't really buying into NIL. We don't know. I can't say we know because the proof is in the pudding. But we hear that Jen Cohen is all about NIL and they're trying to fundraise and get NIL. Here's the question I have. Say we start winning, right? And let's say this year we go to the semis. We lose in the semis. It's all good. We go to the national championship, lose the national championship. We win one, lose one, win one, lose one. We make it to the semis, don't make it. What if we became a championship team, I guess you could say, win the Big Ten, made it deep in the rounds of the playoffs, like championship rounds of the playoffs? Does NIL start rolling in like a waterfall for USC? Or will it still be a struggle? And we're talking a forecast maybe, let's say 10 years from now. This is a 10-year forecast. Let's be realistic. It's a 10-year forecast. We'll start seeing money flow in if they do make the semifinals and then next year go to the national championship, no doubt. But consistently, will the money become a waterfall? Ryan, you go first and then go ahead to Jamal.
I mean, you like to think it will. I mean, all this hypothetical and speculation, but you would think it's such an interesting landscape because even if the money does start coming in, is it used properly? Is it allocated properly? Is it used for the right players that are here to stay and don't take the money and then run after a year if they're not getting enough playing time? But to answer your question, and I'll cede more time to Jamal because I don't have a ton of thoughts on it. But yeah, you would think if they win even this year that the money will start coming in more than it is currently. But then also, how creative do you get with it? Are you bringing in other brands and different, iconic stuff from LA to supplement things? And it's not just straight donor money. So, I mean, it's such a multifaceted sport now, or more multifaceted funding, I guess, for NIL. That how are they creatively thinking? And that's what we'll hopefully learn more over the next 6 months before the season starts. But yeah, I mean, if they start winning, that certainly will solve some problems in just amount of capital coming in.
Man, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great question, Fred, and I think there's a bit of a seesaw that's at play here. And I think on the one end of the spectrum, look, we're still in a period of immense transition and volatility when it comes to NIL. NIL is like the Bitcoin of sports right now because there's so much volatility. Look, we're headed for a world where 6 months from now, 9 months from now, 12 months from now, we're going to be talking about players being unionized and being actual employees of the university. And so that will actually eliminate the collective structure because you can actually just go directly to the university, and the university athletic department budgets can directly pay players. So now you've got kind of more of an employee mindset at that point that kicks in. So what works for USC in a very significant way is if you have that employee mindset, you're by Hollywood. You've got the weather. You've got all the glitz and glamour and big market associated with LA. You've got the branding that USC is so good at to be able to funnel in more money. So you would think that's a significant advantage over any institution, whether it's in Athens, Georgia, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or Knoxville, Tennessee, or Mississippi, or what have you. So I think there's a significant advantage to play there. But on the flip side, look, let's be honest about it. LA is never going to eat, breathe, sleep, die football the way the South will. And so even if the South is slow to the party, you have to sort of respect how important football is in that region. And at some point, if they determine this is the key ingredient to get our teams to be winning, they're going to go and do it all. So we talked about this. What made the Leinart Bush years so special was USC was the show. There was no professional football in LA. USC was professional football. The Lakers were down. The Dodgers were down. They were the show. Now USC is one of 14 professional teams in Los Angeles. So you have the inherent advantages in terms of marketing and Hollywood and resources and business partners and the Trojan branding, but you're also got to weigh that against all of those resources are going to be competed by all the other sports teams and all the other entities and all the other attractions that is Los Angeles. So I think there's that seesaw. But certainly, if USC becomes a perennial contender year over year and goes on a run the way Alabama has the last 10 years, the way Miami did in the 80s, the way the Nebraskas and the Oklahomas went in the 60s and 70s, you have to believe this is going to become part of the culture and ethos of LA once again going into the next decade, and USC should be positioned very well for that.
And the reason why I asked that question, real quick answer. If things go wayward, not now, let's just say down the line, things go wayward, do they throw money at it to fix it, or do they back off? And we know how the boosters can be. Or will they put it all in to fix it? And I think I know your answer already because you kind of know your answer. But do you think they throw money at it to fix it, or do they back off and wait for it to be fixed on its own? Go ahead, Jamal. My fault. It was towards you.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to. It's very interesting, right, Fred? Part of it depends on the timing here. Look, it's been 20 years since SC's been SC. And so there's a couple of ways to assess that. Well, there's a little bit of bad luck with the coaching. Obviously, kind of getting hosed by the NCAA, set that back a ways. Interesting issues with different, personal lives of different coaches, players, what have you. But you also had a situation where the boosters and the alumni base didn't necessarily demonstrate the urgency to get it back, right? Like when you think about a team in the South, or some blue blood team in college basketball or, any other sort of blue blood program in sports, you're going to do whatever it takes to kind of get back to the top. That didn't really happen here. And then when you overlay that with, look, the USC of today is very different from the USC of 20 years ago when we were there, where the demographics of the university are different. The donor base is very different. The demographics of who gives money, what they care about is very different. So if this was 20 years ago and there was a slump, I would say absolutely. But today, that's kind of a different answer. So I think it's going to be slightly more passive in totality. I think you're going to have the 4, 5, 6 super fan donors, mega donors that are going to care about this very deeply. But is that going to be enough to just throw money at a problem and fix it? So I think it's going to be a fascinating next 12, 24 months to see how this shakes out.
I just want to correct you on one thing. We don't have 14 teams in LA. We have the Dodgers, the Lakers, the Galaxy, and the Kings. That's all we have. We have 4 teams in LA.
I'm a purist. I'm a purist
Rams,
like you, Fred.
The Rams. We have 5. I'm
the
sorry.
Rams, but the Chargers and the Clippers and LAFC and the Ducks and, all the nonsense that's going on,
The Ducks are in Orange County and the Angels are in Orange County. They're in a whole different city.
The Angels and my goodness.
You remember just 2 years ago, USC Notre Dame, one of the great rivalries all of sports, the same day LAFC in the same parking lot is winning the title for MLS. So yeah, there's just always something to compete with. The only thing I'll add to what Jamal said is, I mean, there's no obviously perfect answer, but it depends like how much are they going to throw at it? Because you could argue that they did that this offseason with how much they threw at this defensive staff. Now, if we're talking about a complete, okay, they're paying out Lincoln Riley 6 years from now, his buyout, and going and getting another Lincoln Riley type coach and money, that's a different story. But they showed this year at least that they're willing to spend a good amount to fix the problem very quickly. And thus far, based on what we've seen since December and this weekend, it's working. So I'll throw it back to you, Coach. We got to at least mention Isaiah Gibson, because another huge recruit. I know Jamal kind of mentioned him, and we've talked loosely, but got to at least mention.
I'm sorry, Jamal talked about
edge rusher.
I thought that was sweet edge rusher, another 4-star edge rusher, 245 now. He'll be 260 by the time he plays in the program. We're just creating depth, and here's what I like about it. Right, the number on the weight. By the time he plays, he'll be maybe 260. 250, but that's a big edge rusher as a freshman. He'll gain weight and be able to put it on, and he's under Coach Henney, right? That's another guy joining the dog work mentality, able to play. I don't think, and I told you this, Ryan, when they offered somebody like way back in December, if the DC doesn't approve, it's not going to go forward. Now you got to get Henney's approval too. You know what I mean? Henney, what you think about this guy? I like him. All right, Lynn, what do you think? I like him too. Let's move forward. If you have a disagreement, you try to find out the pros and cons, and you can make a move and something. And I've been in this situation too. Hey, it's on you. This guy don't work out. It's on you. All right, I'll take the responsibility, Coach. So, and sometimes you get overran by the DC, and that's the nature of the job. But depth. They're building depth with big guys. He's 6'4", and he's going to grow some more. That's a long defensive end. They're building long arm defensive ends. They're building big defensive tackles on the interior. Like Jamal said, they're starting from the interior and working their way back. That's the one way to do it. Bill Belichick always started back and worked forward. But no matter where you start, you got to go with that plan and stick to it. So I love how they're starting up front, winning the game up front with this recruit. So Isaiah Gibson is going to be a great guy, great addition. I think he'll get reps as a freshman because of the rotation of defense alignment, and he just adds depth in a set of fresh legs.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the only thing I'll add, and Jamal, if you want to, but this is purely fodder for podcasters. There's no like facts behind this, but we're podcasters. We want to talk about it. But this weekend was, and we're excited. It's a good weekend. Like obviously we got to see it come out, but the last 5, 6, 7 years, and there's absolute truth that USC still has work to do in California in our backyard. That's a different conversation. We've talked about it, but for those past years, the SEC has been coming to LA and taking LA players. I mean, we know it just from quarterbacks, right? CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, go down the list. This weekend was a great, fun weekend for SC to go to SEC country and take a lot of their own and bring them out west. So for fans out there listening, it was a fun weekend to be like, they got 2 guys from Georgia, 1 guy from Florida. We didn't mention the Gus Bus from Texas, but going into SEC country and pulling weight and bringing guys out here. So just some podcast fodder, but some fun stuff there for fans to chat about.
Right.
And ain't no fun when the rabbit has a gun.
It reminds me of the the shorts where it's like, hey, we're podcasters. We say what we want, and all of that so I love that intro. And remember, I mean, Ryan, just to piggyback off of that, the slogan of the team a couple of years ago, when the struggles, to your point, when the SEC was coming and raiding folks from Southern California, remember, was Take Back the West. And we've got a lot of apparel in the merch store, LAFB, that has Take Back the West. Well, guess what? Sunday was Take Back the South. Okay. Yep. And so that's really the statement that was made here. And the last thing I'll add is the best recruiting tool now moving forward, in addition to everything that Coach Henney is doing and others, is performing this season. Because if you follow all of this up with another 8-5 or a 9-4, guess what? The immediacy of society today and young people is going to feel like a distant memory. So the best recruiting tool after you've brought guys in, the best retention tool, Ryan, is performance on the field to be able to set up success for 25. So that creates even more urgency for this particular year as a stepping stone to get that sustained success, Fred, that you've been talking about.
Yeah, all I got to say to that is Ain't no fun when the rabbit has a gun. It was all fun and games when y'all were doing it. Now the rabbit has a gun. Now they're like, wait a
Take
minute.
back the South. That's another shirt, right? You know, we got DAWGWORK and we got Take Back the South.
There we go.
There you go. Hey, guys, I appreciate you. We're going a little bit early today. I know you guys don't know that, but we're going a little bit early today.
You guys are denying me the opportunity to watch Juju warm up. I mean, let's wrap it up, Fred. You know,
let's go. Let's deal with the West LA traffic to get over there.
Yes, exactly. Mia usually gives the hook. I mean, Juju's giving me the hook right now. So
I feel like Ryan's is more important. He has to go pay Uncle Sam. So we don't want to have him. We don't want to have him podcasting from Capistrano. So we just want to make sure everything's good. And I appreciate you guys. It's so fun. How about we do it again on Thursday, man? Great talk, great ramble. Fans, we appreciate you. We did it again. See you guys next time. It's the Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast. You know how it goes. Live free, fight on.